Hello everyone and welcome to Week 3, Module 3. This is Dr. April Bice and let's talk just a little bit about your activities for the week and your submitted assignments in Module 3. So in Module 3 we'll be focusing on effective communication, holistic nursing practice, and also various health and illness models that are applicable to the nursing profession. As usual, you have your module overview and your module objectives. But let's focus more on your to-do list for this week. You do have your reading assignments that will help you with your discussion and also your learning about concepts of miscommunication and holistic health models. We have a few web lessons we would like for you to complete in the classroom activities. Now remember, the classroom activities are not submitted assignments. You do not have to turn these in for a grade. They are always just something for you to do to help your learning and also to help you with discussion, as well as help prepare you with your assignments that are to be submitted. Let's focus just a little bit on the letter to the editor. So in number 4, you have the letter to the editor rubric. This page gives you the guidelines and the rubric for the letter to the editor project that's due at the end of this module and the end of this week. This assignment is 20% of your grade, and we have you complete this letter to the editor to share your professional reaction with an editor of a peer-reviewed journal, because we feel that it's important as a baccalaureate prepared nurse and moving into baccalaureate prepared nursing for you to really focus on evidence-based practice and also being involved in sharing your voice with other professionals. So along with the objectives and your instructions that you need to read in their entirety, there's also a rubric. Be sure that your article is not older than 6 months old. You will receive point deduction if you use an article that is older than that. Now, you've already shared some information about an article that you were considering in last week's discussion. If you'd like to choose a new article, that's perfectly fine as well. You are not married to the article you chose for your last discussion, but you can certainly use that if you'd like. So I'm going over this because I want you to pay particular attention to the grading criteria. You want to look at every one of the criteria for excellent under your heading, introduction, description, conclusion, and then grammar and length. As long as you are clearly using each one of these criteria in an excellent manner, you'll be successful. The other thing you need to make sure you're doing is following the sample format. And the sample format is found here in number 5. So we give you a very clear outline of how you are to create your letter to the editor assignment. Okay, so you want to follow this outline from beginning to end, because this is the appropriate outline that you would use in submitting a letter to the editor to a peer-reviewed journal. Now, here where it says address of the journal, there are some journals that do not provide physical addresses, and that's okay. If all you can find is a web address or a URL, you can write that here under the address instead of the physical address. Be sure to use the editor's appropriate credentials and education titles. You would want to title or introduce them as Dear Editor or Dear Dr. So-and-so. Never their first name, and never Miss or Mrs., because you want to make sure you're using the appropriate titles for the person you're directing the letter to. Okay. So next we also want you to get ready and look at the Creative Professional Identity Project Guidelines and Rubric. That will be due in a different module, but it's something we like to have students get a head start on, because this assignment, although very creative in nature, can take some time because you use media tools such as iMovie, Movie Maker, or Animoto. And it's something that you really have to put yourself in order for all of the components in the rubric and the guidelines to be met. So make sure you're taking a look. The main focus of your grade will be on creativity an expression of self-reflected identity. Please remember that you are not just focusing on your experience and your self-identity as a nurse now. You're focusing on your past, your present, and your future identity as a baccalaureate prepared nurse. In this assignment, I expect to hear about the art and the science of nursing in your opinion, but also about how you think things will change for you when you have received that BSN. All right. There are some other things here to help you as you prepare for that assignment. YouTube instructions, okay, following the proper rules with the electronics, the media tools, and how to submit those videos is very important. If the files come back to us as either corrupt or unreadable and we have to reach out to you and the assignment is late, you will receive deductions. So please make sure that you get a head start on this assignment early. So this week, you will be submitting your discussion board assignment and the letter to the editor assignment. Those are both submitted assignments for a grade this week. We have more additional resources to help your learning and to help you with preparing for other assignments due in the following weeks. But let's focus just a minute on the discussion board assignment. This week is really important. We're talking about miscommunication and cultural competence. And these two parts of the discussion are necessary to get full credit. So you want to make sure you hit both pieces of the miscommunication and the cultural competence. One of the biggest parts of this discussion primary post is going to be when you were the source of miscommunication. Okay? You want to explain a time, what happened, and how you felt when you were the source of that miscommunication in your job as a nurse. Please do not be afraid. This is not a place where we will be judging you. It's really a no judgment place. It's not punitive, but it's important because we will all learn from hearing about others' miscommunication situations. So I will give you an example of one time that I was a very big source of miscommunication. There was a night that I was on the floor working with 4 other nurses who were all less than 1 year of practice. And at the time I had been a nurse for about 5 to 6 years. I worked in hematology, oncology, immunology, and we did a lot of infusions on this inpatient clinic for patients that were children. I'm a pediatric nurse by nature. And I was having such a busy evening trying to focus on helping everybody else who needed me, and it was really hard because I was finding that I was not just caring for my patients but also really trying to help care for others in a time when new nurses were struggling a little bit with things they didn't always understand. So I had one nurse say to me, "How do I hang IVIGs? How do I give this medication?" And I looked at the nurse, and I was in the med room. I was preparing medications for another patient, and I said, "Just make sure that you prime it correctly, and you're going to hang it over the rules and guidelines that we have on the policies and procedures manual online." And she said, "Oh, okay." And I walked out, I went and gave my medications, and I came back, and when I went back into the med room and the nurse looked at me, she said, "I'm confused because now almost all of my medication dose is gone." And what had happened is she primed the tubing with the IVIGs, and she did it so quickly to get all of the little bubbles out, and she had primed almost all of the dose of immune globulins through the entire tubing, and she had just let all of it go out into a trash can. So yes, that was something that was her fault. However, this was really my fault too, because as an educator, as a nurse who should have been responsible for helping her, I should have stayed there. I should have walked her through that, knowing that was the first time she'd ever done that, and I never should have walked away without helping her to prepare for that. So we had to write an incident report because that was a $17,000 dose of medication. So think of a time when you were the source of a miscommunication, whether big or small. We have all done that, okay? And how it affected your patient, how it affected you, or how it affected others. And discuss that in your discussion board this week. Follow the guidelines for the response post, okay? And then you'll also be submitting your letter to the editor here. We have the guidelines, the rubric, and the sample letter again here for you in this drop link, please make sure that you read these very, very clearly. If you have any questions about either the format, the guidelines, or the rubric, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am here to answer any questions. You can also, of course, always submit your questions in the discussion board course question and answer. I'm happy to help you there as well. Now, if any of you have any questions, concerns, or you need to clarify something, just email me or discuss it in the discussion board, and I am happy to answer any questions. I hope you each have a fabulous day, and I will see you all virtually online.